So let's go.
It's always on there.
$3.
What time are we doing this still?
6 minutes.
Oh, 7:30.
Yeah. Hopefully that'll work. Okay, so you can
Well, so my buddy bought me this ring.
Thank you for your help.
I'm ready.
And I can see the.
We're doing my buddy trap last night. Brisket, he served us with $80 an hour.
So he worked from the butcher.
He actually works out of Greensboro. He's ex-president and now he's got eyeball in every day.
It's about the person who wakes up and turns their body. Yeah.
So if we want to see her step,
Wow.
we could make it.
We don't want to go out.
30 minutes. So my smoke, right? I went up, I had my birthday party, birthday gathering. And so I was going to put a brisket in my brisket, I got the wings, the whole chicken legs. 3 hours on the top rack of my grill. Were amazing. But the sauce, I went to Fire Foods. And used the
But I wasn't.
All of the company. I'm explaining the problem. She goes, all right, sounds like you're gas. She goes, every 45 minutes. I'm like, Amazon and Lowe's. Sir, you're going to drive. We know this one works for you. For $15, I get it. That's the tip, right? With the adapter. The way they this company got get you. It's a $250 the tube that connects to the propane tank, that connects to like lights with the gas, the nozzle with the gas comes out. It's all one unit. It doesn't screw into the nozzle. It's built into the nozzle. So I called them like a couple days later and I'm like, hey, you couldn't get a fire? I still haven't received that. So I did the brisket last weekend. It was not something I was proud of.
And what? It was too fire.
So I put on it for around noon. So back out. Right? And I'm like, this side is you put your hand over there, right? This side was my girl's probably burner. It's like a 36 inch wide. So you can see oh yeah. This side of the mirror, it was not I had to move the needle. When I moved the needle over, it started going up like on the problem is that was like it was too late. So the edges were so laser. The middle was a little tough for them for a while. It reached 185. And I wanted to keep it on longer, but it was 7 o'clock.
That's the.
I'm not.
Everybody ready? Hey! Everybody ready?
Do it, Lorraine. I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Over here.
I don't know, but Beth and Emma
You got you on here.
That's easily done.
Okay. Hey, welcome everybody. It's great to have you here. This is about the Oscars, okay? This isn't about, well, kind of is about the other thing. But in the Oscars, they give an acceptance speech. So I have a speech. And my teenage daughter will be delighted by the fact that I have written a speech, right? So okay. So anyway, really appreciate you being here. I'm actually very, I really appreciate Emma's friends being here in particular. One of the reasons why I put a whole bunch of work into this has something to do with Emma. So we do have a web stream thing going on. We have our moms, hopefully.
Hi, Jen.
Yeah, hopefully Jen, hopefully a bunch of friends from Kansas City and in California, and some family from out of town as well that couldn't be here wanting to see it. So we're going to give it a try. They probably can't hear me real well, but we got a whole bunch of people here for the Oscar party. And so when this is done, we'll all eat and drink and enjoy the Oscars. So I also want to thank Beth and Emma totally for their understanding. It's been about 14 months where they've been banned from going in my shop. The door's been locked, and I've disappeared for 5 or 6 hours a day on the weekends and a lot of times in the evening. And so they'll find out why, pretty soon, why it was a secret, but I think it was for good reason. Also, hopefully online is a good friend of ours by the name of Heather Sugawara. Hi Heather, if you're there.
Hi, Heather.
And so Heather is a super talented photographer, and she's kind of my creative partner in this. So here's the thing. This is kind of a big deal for me. And I'll get a little emotional at some point, but I want to thank you for humoring me on the speech. I had this idea several years ago to do something really big and really difficult, and I didn't know if I could pull it off, but I wanted to try. So I looked at my credit card bill that started on January 13th, 2017, and after 5 months, I realized that I had a technical flaw, and I had to destroy 5 months worth of work and start over again. And it's a word that we don't like to use, but there's only one word in Emma, and it sucks. So we started over, but I didn't keep track of time, but it was probably several hundred hours. So not to be too dramatic, but I had a lot of alone time working on this, sitting in the shop, my little miserable self, and I learned a few things that I want to share with you. So the first one is something obvious, and that is these two are really beautiful. And so I have a reason to say that, and I know why. And the second one is best expressed in a really old story. So has anyone ever heard of a parable of, it's called the Parable of the Minas, M-I-N-A-S. Anyone ever heard of that? Well, I want to read it to you, so if I can get through it. So long ago, currency was expressed as a unit of weight. In an ancient Aramaic, the unit of weight... I can translate it to Italian. In Aramaic, the unit of currency was called the minas. And so the Parable of the Minas dates back to biblical times, and it goes like this. So there was a wealthy man, and he was planning a journey. And so he called his servants together, and he entrusted to them his fortune. And so the first one he gave 5 minas, 5 units of currency. The second 2, and the third only 1, each according to his ability. And then the master went away. And so the first servant who got the 5 minas, he immediately went and he invested them. He made 5 minas more. And then the second servant, who was given 2 minas, also invested them, and he earned 2 minas more. And then the third servant only got 1. He buried it in the ground for safekeeping. He didn't invest it. And after a long time, the master came back and settled his accounts with the servants. And so the first servant who got 5 minas, he came forward and he said, "Master, I've invested the 5 minas that you entrusted to me, and I've earned you 5 more." And the master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, and so I'll set you over much. Be welcome at my table." And so the second servant, who was given 2 minas, came forward, and he said, "I also invested the 2 minas you gave me, and I earned you 2 more." And so the master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I'll set you over much. Be welcome at my table." And so the third servant, who had only been given 1, he came forward and he said, "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, and so I was afraid, and I went and I hid the 1 minas in the ground, and I returned to you that which is yours." And so the master answered him, he said, "You slothful servant, you ought to have invested that which I entrusted to you and put it to good use, so that I would receive what is my own with interest." And the master took away his 1 minas and gave it to the guy with 10. And he threw the worthless servant out into the darkness. So the parable of the minas isn't about money. It's about using what you're given. Anyone know the Latin word for meanness? Talent. So, I think the lesson is we each have talents, but we have to put them to use. Third thing is, this is the last one. It has to do, this is the one I'm talking to Emma about. It has to do with the notion of doing your best work. So, I believe that at certain times in your life, you have to find something against which you can strive to do your very best work. It has to be something hard, something as pure as your effort and ability, pure to your effort and ability as possible, as free from focus, as free as possible from outside influence, something upon which you can intensely focus your intention, resolve, commitment, and dedication to make your absolute best effort. And then you make each tiny fraction of effort, one tiny little thing you can focus on, make it as good as you can, and when you can't make it any better, then you move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then you can step back and say, this is what I did. So, this is for Beth and Emma. It's called Great Big Love. It's the best I can do. So, now, party. Bye, everybody.
Wow. What's the medium? Pencil?
That's a pencil sketch.
Wow.
Did you do this ones also? Build ones there on the wall?
Yeah, those were. Let me shut this down real quick. Those were.